The door remains ajar. It's not by chance. There's something inside that still refuses to accept that it's over. The body moves cautiously, as if someone could return at any moment. Every gesture carries a remnant of presence. A weight that remains unnamed, yet is still there, palpable in the air. The chair hasn't been pushed back. The cup hasn't been put away. Certain things stay exactly where they were left, as if they still belong to someone who's no longer here. The mind swears it has forgotten, but the feet follow the same paths. The favorite clothes remain in the same drawers. The perfume that once sparked memories is still used as if out of habit. And the laughter, when it escapes, it halts mid-flight, as if it lost the reflection that used to answer, as if inside it still waits to hear another laugh in return. It's easy to say that it's over, but the body doesn't lie. The position in bed is still the same. The empty side continues to be avoided. The arms still search for something in the dark, even if they won't admit it. No memory has been erased. They've only been stacked carefully on invisible shelves, but just a smell, a word, a specific moment, and everything falls apart again. The mind gets distracted, but the heart registers everything, including what one no longer wants to feel. It's there that one realizes the absence has left stronger marks than the presence. Time has moved on, but it hasn't taken away. And when no one is watching, when the house falls silent, when the eyes close and the world slows down, something still calls out without a sound. Because some things don't end. They simply remain quiet, but they stay alive, exactly where no one else can see. It hasn't been verbalized, it hasn't been acknowledged, not even to oneself. But it's clear, visible in the details that seem mundane, but hold more memory than one would like to admit. The living room door is never locked right away. It's always left slightly open, as if someone still believes that someone might return. Not out of habit, but out of impulse. An impulse that repeats itself every night, even when it doesn't make sense. The chair remains slightly pulled away from the table, the one that was always occupied by someone who left. It hasn't been forgotten. It has been kept, almost like a silent ritual of preserving what is no longer there. And there is an almost imperceptible care in the arrangement. An extra plate that is never used. A glass that remains there, even though it hasn't been touched. There are traces of someone who hasn't returned. And yet everything is still arranged as if the absence were temporary. The hands repeat automatic gestures. The eyes avoid certain corners of the house. The mind pretends not to remember. But the body still responds. It's in the long pauses that the truth reveals itself. When the environment goes silent, when the noises cease, and all that's left is the held breath, the scattered thoughts, the presence of someone who is no longer here. The routine has been rebuilt, but never replaced. The songs play, but there's always that one that is skipped quickly, that one that carries an unspoken name, that one that ignites the memory like a sharp blade, short, quick, precise, and unbearably real. On the street, distracted steps lead along the same paths. The shop windows still reflect a face. The shop windows still reflect you, even if it's not actually you, and that alone is enough to unbalance within. Time has passed, yes, but the absence has taken form. It has become something, an object of internal touch, physical pain, tactile memory. And then sleep comes, or the attempt at it. Because there is no true rest when the mind lays upon the same pillow where someone's voice once existed. And even with the bed empty, the space continues to be respected. The unoccupied half remains there, untouched, as if something sacred resides in that emptiness. There are not tears every day, but there are silences that are far too long, silences that speak more than 1,000 poorly made farewells. The memory of the touch is still perceptible on the skin, not the physical touch, but the one that transcended, the one who didn't pass through the hand, passed through the gaze, the voice, the mannerisms. Some say it's been overcome, but there's evidence that it hasn't. Nostalgia isn't found in the obvious moments. It lives in the mechanical gesture of picking up the phone and typing a name and deleting it before sending. It dwells in the lost glances in a crowd, searching for a silhouette that may no longer exist. It survives in the instinctive reaction to the sound of a similar laugh. And this continues, even with all the attempts to ignore it, even with all the rehearsed speeches, even with all the distractions created to fill the space that remains. The body feels, the soul remembers, and the presence that was taken away doesn't disappear. It stays there, parked in the most hidden part of those who feel. You can sense it in the tone of the voice, in the care taken to avoid saying the name, in the way the conversation shifts direction when something touches the exact point of the wound. Because the name still holds power, it still carries an impact that destabilizes. It can still make tremble what seemed to be already rebuilt. And even in the face of new people, new settings, new encounters, there's always a hint of comparison, unspoken, unacknowledged, but present. Everything passes through an internal filter, and no new presence can be neutral, because there are still remnants of what was experienced. There are still traces of an absence that shaped how one feels now. The heart, which claimed to have closed its doors, still keeps a crack open, a tiny crack, but enough for the memory to enter, to settle in, and remain. This isn't a choice. It's a consequence of something that was too strong to forget and too fragile to survive the test of time. That person who once existed outside still dwells within, not as an active presence, but as a constant reference, like an invisible frame around everything that is felt. And then the day ends, and when everything shuts down, the body rests, but the mind does not. Because in the dark, without distractions, without noise, what remains resurfaces with greater clarity. It's right there, in total absence, that we realize time hasn't taken anything. It has merely silenced it. But to silence is not the same as to erase. And when sleep finally comes, it arrives with images, with scenes that aren't made up. They are remembered, revived, even without permission. The absence has become a kind of presence, one that doesn't speak, doesn't touch, doesn't respond, but exists. And this invisible existence carries weight. It has a scent. It has a form. And even if we don't admit it, it's this presence that dictates the rhythm of what is felt now. Those who feel this know. They know it's not about romanticism, nor dependence, much less weakness. It's about perception. The perception that certain connections are so deep that they aren't broken by absence. They linger, even if only from one side, even if in silence, even if within a pain that no one else sees. And even when a new love arrives, something inside keeps going back there, to that place where it all began, to that memory that refuses to die, to that moment where presence was whole and nothing had broken yet. Those who feel this carry a presence in a state of absence. And this is one of the hardest pains to name. But it exists, and perhaps it's alive in whoever is reading this now, because there's something that still hasn't been said, something you haven't even been able to name. When absence stops hurting visibly, it starts to numb, and no one notices, neither those who feel it nor those who observe. The pain changes shape. It no longer screams. It doesn't demand explanation. It merely settles in. It starts to take up space. It becomes temperament, silence, distance, disinterest. And what was once an active longing full of life turns into fatigue, a discouragement that can't be explained, apathy disguised as peace. This is how absence turns into anesthesia. It doesn't hurt like before, but it also doesn't allow you to feel the new. You wake up, live, respond, work, talk, but something is turned off, something essential is no longer lit. The absence no longer brings you down, but it also doesn't allow anyone in. And the worst part is that on the outside, everything seems normal. It's functional, it's productive, it's resolved. But on the inside, the eyes no longer shine like they used to. The touch lacks connection. The laughter doesn't last, the bond doesn't solidify. Because the absence hasn't been processed. It's been locked away, shoved into a corner, treated like it's all settled, when in reality it's still alive, breathing slowly, and affecting everything. And this is not weakness. It's not drama. It's simply the effect of someone who felt deeply and didn't have the space to work through it. So time went on. And with it, the capacity to feel was reduced. Not by choice, but as a form of protection. And now you look at yourself in the mirror and realize You don't feel like you used to. You don't open up anymore. You don't get emotional easily. You don't expose yourself because something is still stuck, where no one touches, where the name is no longer spoken, where the pain has been hidden but never dissolved. You notice this in the small reactions, in how you avoid certain conversations, in the rush to change the subject when anything brushes against that memory, in the difficulty of answering when someone asks, "Why did you distance yourself from everything?" And the answer doesn't come, because even you don't know exactly. You just know that something was left behind, something was lost, something that no one has been able to return, and even trying to start over, nothing fits. Because starting over, when it hasn't truly ended, is like building on rubble. There's no foundation, there's no stability, it can't hold. The numbness disguises itself as healing, but it's just a forced pause, an emotional survival, an automatic mode that activates when feeling becomes too dangerous. And now, what was longing has turned into denial. What was pain has become a block. And what was love has become protection against anything that resembles it. That's why certain people seem so cold. They're not. They've just bled inside for too long. And now they've learned not to let anyone get close to the wound. If you see yourself in this, breathe. Because this is not your sentence. It's just a reflection of something that still needs to be looked at honestly. Without guilt, without haste, without trying to convince yourself that it's in the past. It's not in the past. It's right here, silently active, waiting for the moment to be embraced, not suffocated. The good news, you can go back. You can feel again. You can unnumb yourself. You can exist fully, without the fear of pain returning. But for that, you need to stop pretending that you don't feel. You need to acknowledge that it still hurts, even if the pain has no name. Even if it only shows up at night, even if you've learned to function with it. It's not about drama, it's about humanity. It's about realizing that what made you silent still lives within. And as long as this isn't touched with presence, with truth, with genuine listening, nothing will fill that space. You will continue living half-heartedly, connecting at the surface, loving with the brakes on, wishing with a catch, opening up with fear. But that's not you. That's just what's left after the absence, after the cut, after the unspoken. You are still here, whole, but trapped behind the trauma of loss. It's time to go back, not to who you were, but to who you were before you lost yourself trying to forget. Go ahead. You need to see this before you keep pretending you've moved on. Because that's exactly what has been happening, a constant attempt to appear okay, to convince yourself and others that everything is in the past. But it's not in the past. Because the past is not a timeline, it's a body. And when it's not buried with truth, it rots from the inside, and now you feel it. On random days, in reactions that seem exaggerated but aren't, in the lack of patience, in the mood swings, in the anger that arises out of nowhere, in the anxiety that no one understands, in the exhaustion that can't be explained by sleep. These are the symptoms of unresolved absence, of a grief not lived, an ending that wasn't truly resolved. But it wasn't just one person who left. It was a part of you that got lost along the way, a way of loving, a way of trusting, a way of believing that things could last. Since then, everything has become temporary. Relationships last less. Conversations are shallower. The heart protects itself before even feeling, as if the body has learned that letting go is dangerous. And it is. But even more dangerous is living anesthetized. It's smiling out of obligation. It's connecting without true commitment. It's sleeping next to someone and feeling like there's no one there. And the most subtle part of it all is that no one notices. Because you've learned to disguise it, to be functional, to fulfill your tasks, to respond on autopilot, to pretend you've moved on, to appear as someone who is fine. But at night, the silence betrays you, the pillow knows, the mind knows, and the heart, even when silent, whispers in a low frequency. You hear it, but you ignore it. You do something else. You take a shower, check your phone, lie down, pretend. But deep down you know that you're surviving. You know you're not whole anymore. You know that what you feel today is filtered through the fear of what you felt before. And it's not just about that person, it's about everything that presence activated in you, about how you felt when you were seen, when you were touched, when you were understood without needing to explain. That's what you miss. It's not the name, it's the internal space that was built with that, and which is now empty. And even if new people come along, you compare, you project, you withdraw, because deep down you still wait for a presence that has never repeated itself, and perhaps it never will. Because certain connections have no substitutes, no replicas, no alternatives. What remains is to process, but no one taught you how, they just told you to get over it. Said that time heals, said it's just about not thinking. But time doesn't heal ignored absence, it only puts it to sleep, leaves it there, in the corner. And one day, it awakens, out of nowhere, in the middle of a laugh, in a song, from an old message, from a new absence. And then, everything returns, with strength, with form, with taste, with sound. And you realize that you haven't moved on, you've just numbed yourself, and now it's time to return to yourself, not to seek who you were, but to reclaim who remains, the part of you that learned to be silent, that got used to having little, that stopped desiring intensely to avoid disappointment again. It's still there, silent but alive, waiting for someone to pay attention to it, and that someone is you. It won't come from the outside, it won't be another love, it won't be a new cycle. It will be the exact moment you stop running from your pain, when you stop pretending you've moved on, when you have the courage to look inside with honesty, without distraction, without denial, without sabotaging yourself. That's where everything starts to return. Your voice, your hunger for life, the spark in your eyes, real desire, and for the first time, you won't need anyone to return, because you will have returned to yourself. Share this with those who need it. Comment on how you felt, leave your like and subscribe to the channel.